Detroit is Different is where you get information, artistry, history, music, and even comedy. Detroit is Different, a home for the culture of Detroit. Visit online at DetroitisDifferent.com today.
Back again in full effect in the Detroit is Different podcast studios. I have another interview with somebody I've known his whole life, somebody I've known most of my life. Family. So it's always great to get family a part of what I'm doing with Detroit is Different. And soon you're going to see more of my family and kind of the structure of how this all exists. But this is a younger cousin, but younger in age, but definitely with projects, wisdoms, creativities, something I learned something from. He's been on Detroit is Different before when it was under a different format, when I was doing like more shorter stories, but now we get the longer story of Devin Laster. Devin, how you feeling?
I'm feeling great, man. Glad to be here.
All right, so we've been talking about this for a while because it's been a lot of trips where you come back because right now you don't reside in Detroit.
Right.
And actually you haven't resided in Detroit in a minute.
It's been a long minute, yeah.
Yep, but so a lot of this story about you as an artist and coming together with artistry. So that's acting, that's also visual art and other creative projects, plays, writing. You dove right in. And when we talk about cousins and everything like that, that kind of goes back to my sister,
right.
Dara.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who's like a blueprint of like everything do.
Yeah.
She does. And kind of the only thing that is missing now is Dara's deep in animation, and I can only imagine it'll only be a short stint before you get into that world too.
Probably not. Actually, a lot of people don't know. I was accepted into SVA, School of Visual Arts in New York, under animation, and that's really what I wanted to get into. Well, what I thought I wanted to get into, but it just cost too much. It cost way too much. They wanted to have the entire first semester accounted for financially. And I was able to get a lot in student loans, financial aid, and whatever. And I got my ID, I got my schedule, I even got my books, and I got some DVDs for me to check out and to see what the students were doing. And I was very excited. And I was like, I can't get these last few $1,000s. I can't even go. But in the long run, I think that was for the best. I was only 17 at the time, so I didn't really. I think I knew I wanted to do art, but visual art. Visual art, but not really understanding exactly what kind. So I just appreciated animation so much. But then I started doing my own artwork, and I never had a painting class. I just started doing it on my own, and I fell in love with the canvas and the actual physical paints. So much so that I'm like, I think I would have not liked the whole digital aspect of it. So yeah.
All right, so that's already some of the gems that I'm going to get from this. I usually start for people with all stories, and these are questions I definitely know. Foundation, family.
Yeah.
Because right now you're beyond Detroit. You kind of starting our chapter of the family in different places, you and my sister Dar.
Right.
But let's talk about like your roots and your family roots.
Yeah.
Whereabouts? How did they come to Detroit?
How did my family come to Detroit?
Yep. Why?
You know more than I do.
I definitely know a good amount. Yeah.
So my immediate, guardians, my mother and my father. My father's from Goodwater, Alabama originally, and he come up here every summer to spend time with other family members of his who stayed right next door to where my mom was living at the time, which was very close to here, as a matter of fact.
Yep.
And so they got to rapping with one another and spend time with each other a lot. And one day, one thing led to the next, and my mom and him started a more serious connection, and he moved up here from Alabama, and then started a whole family unit, myself and my older sister Donna.
All right, so within that connection, you say Alabama. Whereabouts Alabama? You ever been down there? How small of a town? How big of a town? What was that feel like?
Yeah, it was Goodwater, Alabama. And it's hard to even say that city without having an accent to it. It's so country. And I went, once as an older person. I wasn't even fully an adult yet. I was only 18. I know I went when I was a child, but I can't remember that. And I'll never forget the it's a joke, but it's also serious. When we go into town, my dad would say, okay, and this is downtown. And literally 5 seconds later, he's like, all right, that was downtown. So
Hilarious.
that's how small the city was, and the very small niche community. It was one grocery store, one barbershop. There was actually only one traffic light in his neighborhood. So yeah, that's how small niche the town was. But I don't know. Part of me honestly loved it. I was living in New York when I went as an older person, somewhat of an adult, and to get away from the fast moving life of New York City, to go to a place where literally didn't have a phone connection most of the time I was there, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot.
Okay. All right. So that's that kind of perspective. As I know, that's your dad and your mom's story. I definitely know. But for the people watching, let's share that side of the story. Your mom in Detroit. What's the relationship between your mom and Detroit?
My mom in Detroit, her foundation is man, it's ridiculous. My older sister and I get stopped, I would say, kind of on a regular, especially when I was living here. Mm-hmm. And you Miss Green children, you Miss Green son, you Miss Green daughter.
Hilarious.
And with so much happiness to see just the children of someone who impacted their lives so much, because my mom has been teaching English to high school students since 1999. Mm-hmm. And still to this very day ongoing at Cass Technical High School right downtown Detroit.
Yeah.
And also the school that I went to for high school. And, a lot of students were like, oh, man, it's got to be weird to have your mom as, teaching in the building. I never had her as a teacher, but to be in the building, your mom is like in the building teaching while you going to school. And it only wasn't weird because she was such a great parent. But more importantly, for this, side of the story, she was an amazing teacher. And everyone loved her.
People weren't pulling you to the side like, hey, why your mom get me?
Exactly. No, because if she did, then she should have. But she was an amazing teacher, and all her students loved her so much. And it's like she actually has, kind of telling her age, but she has students who she taught who now have children who are now going to Cass Tech as well. Mm-hmm. So she's teaching like the second generation of the students she taught.
Yeah.
And, everyone loves her so much. Even the students who did bad in her class, years later, in retrospect, they're like, damn, I should listen to Miss Green. Miss Green was right about this. Thank you, Miss Green, for helping me. So, yeah, that's, the impact she has on not just Detroit, but, Cass Tech students, when they graduate, they go all over.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about Cass Tech, as that's been a topic of a couple of my last couple interviews.
Oh, okay.
Interviewing technicians.
Uh-huh.
So your mom, as I've interviewed her before as well, is definitely beloved. One of the most beloved teachers there at Cass, but also DPS in general. Like awards, national awards for teaching.
Yeah.
But what's that journey like for you? Going to Cass, and you started at, as they say, the old Cass.
Right, I did.
So what was that experience like when you got in, and why did you choose to go to Cass?
I think, being so young, that's the school that my mother was teaching at, the school that my older sister was already going to. And before in middle school, I would be at Cass a lot. I'd be there because my sister was in the dance groups, and my mom, of course, would, me being as young as I was, just had to follow around and be wherever they were. And I saw it firsthand. I had a great opportunity to see it on the regular firsthand often. And I was like, man, this is a really cool atmosphere. This is a great vibe. I like this place. And I wondered, I didn't know. I'm like, oh, do they have an art department? Because I've always wanted to do art. Like I said, I always wanted to do art. Do they have, what's the art department looking like? And on the 7th floor, this is the old building, on the 7th floor, there was a drafting whole like wing basically. And they had the projects from the students on the walls in the hallway. So anybody could just walk up and down and look at it. And I looked, and I'm like, yo, these students did this. This is kind of crazy. This is awesome. I would love to be able to do something like this. So my mom had me talk to some of the art teachers, and it just became the place that I wanted to go to, rest is history.
All right, so that journey at CT, what was it like for you? As far as like socially, what was it like for you? Mm-hmm. And then artistry, where did you hone your skills there? What impact has that had on you?
So much, so much. That was when I really started to perform on stage under the teachings of Miss Marilyn McCormick, who's not retired, but and the impact she's had on so many students in the theater business is unspeakable. She won a Tony Award just a couple years back.
Yeah.
And that was just like a huge, monumental thing for me to watch someone who taught me everything I knew about theater receive a Tony Award. I was blown away by that. But yeah, that's when I first started getting on stage, and it was mainly comical things. I didn't get into the dramatic theater at the time, but still just learning everything about theater. And I was a very small little nugget in the bigger productions that she did there, but absorbed every bit that I could, you know?
Yep.
And as soon as I graduated CAS, when I moved to New York and started doing theater, like on a dramatic scale, I went right back to everything I learned from MC, is what we called her, Miss McCormick. Mm-hmm. So being able to go under her wings in those 3 years at CAS when I was involved with the drama club taught me everything I knew, and I was able to take that to New York, grow with that, take that back here when I came back home, then take that to California.
All right, and you bounced around, but with it, like I remember your play of School Daze.
Yeah,
I remember. I still actually have casted a rendition of School Daze.
Yeah.
And you were in G5G.
Yeah, I was.
I got a signed. I got a signed program.
A playbill? Oh, my
playbill.
Man.
So
that was almost 20 years ago?
Yeah, talk about it. Time flies. But within it, that also was like, I remember like your summer, I think your senior summer, like I've never had a per se roommate, but the closest thing to a roommate I've ever had was you. And what's strange is the closest thing my sister probably has ever had to like a roommate is you as well.
Yeah.
But during that time last summer, I was working on a production, rest in peace Kool-Aid. I was working on a production at Northwest Activity Center.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I don't know how to open these curtains. I don't know nothing about this. And then I was like, hey, you know how to do this? And then he was like, yeah. And then he was like, I can post up and stay with you. And I was like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
So you helped that.
Yeah.
You remember that?
I do. I remember there's a picture that exists of you, myself, your mom right outside the theater.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember that.
Okay. All right. So, and then that kind of set me up with when my sister Dara was working on a movie. And I was like, yo, one of the best people that you could ever work with. I was like, I'm going to straight up tell you, he young, but you want to get Devin to come.
Man, I didn't know that that's how that happened.
Yeah.
You're talking about Sweeter Without Sugar.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your introduction to New York.
Yeah.
And it was almost like I was negotiating between family. I was like, Dara, you probably need to work with Devin. And then I was like, Devin, you know how much I love, I don't know if you remember this talk. I was like, Devin, you know how much I love Detroit. You know how much I love artistry, but it's way more opportunities for what you want to do in New York. I think you need to tap in with what Dar's doing.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, let's definitely talk about it. I mean, I remember that like it was tomorrow. Shit.
Uh-huh.
So it was my senior year at CAS.
Yep.
When she was doing Sweeter Without Sugar. And I went to New York for those 2 weeks. I got the permission from all the teachers and everybody. Of course, my mom was supportive and on board with this little journey here, and stayed with Dar in that studio apartment.
I mean, it was a couple of us because it was
it
me,
was. Yeah, we had a mattress
mom,
in the kitchen. I mean, it was
that
it
was
a
the
few
worst
of us.
air mattress ever.
Oh my
the
goodness.
Air mattress kept losing.
It deflated over the night.
So me, Devin, and Dar would like rotate who ended up on it.
Oh my goodness!
And somewhere like after like maybe like an hour of sleep. I don't know if y'all ever slept on a bad air mattress.
Yeah,
you would hear damn.
All of a sudden, you feel the floor on your back. Oh man, yeah, I remember that vividly. But no, it was wild the way that went down, because I know that I was just supposed to help out with in whatever way I could. Mm-hmm. There wasn't like a specific position for me. I guess production assistant would be the closest title that I was having for those first 1-2 days, and then. I don't know how this happened exactly, but we lost the camera operator. I don't know if he got another job or just didn't come back, whatever the case was. Mm-hmm. And I told Dara, I said, I can, let's not lose any time. I can get this shot or these couple of shots right now if you want me to. And on that third day, I did all the shooting on that third day. And after that day was over, we're just like, I'll just keep doing it then.
Yeah.
So that's a it's a camera operating credit that I have at the age of 16.
All right, and now that you've been in this world for a while, because I want you to speak on like being prepared, ready to step up and take the opportunity, because the world of production, all these production works, plays, concerts, theater, like usually it takes like, if you're ready, you can end up in a position with just being a person that doesn't talk too much, doesn't, ruffle any feathers, but is willing to accept whatever the information is. Because sometimes, sometimes the person that just receives the information well and follows whatever that direction is, moves up the ladder of in best position all the time.
Yeah. I think it's a couple of things. Like you said, doesn't ruffle any feathers, listens well, because on film sets, especially the larger ones, and even in theater, it's organized chaos. It's like consistent organized chaos. So if you have your role and know how to be in your role and not be bothered or moved or distracted by all the other things that are constantly going on around you, you will make an impact, and it's noticeable. I've had the opportunity a couple of times where I was only supposed to be working this particular gig 1 or 2 days, and it's like, oh, come back tomorrow. What's your schedule like next week? We'll use you again. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm here.
So all of this, do you think some of that is just more so your demeanor? Do you think some of this is what you got from theater at Cass? What set you up? Because it's also, as much as it is a person that's able to be calm in the organized chaos, it's also people on the other end of that spectrum.
Other side of completely other spectrum. I've seen them. Yeah,
that cause chaos.
Like that's their MO.
Yes.
I think it's a combination. Again, my natural demeanor, but my natural demeanor and personality has nothing to do with the knowledge and experience I have. So it's like it's all those things combined. I think that can, like you said, propel you along that ladder in this business specifically.
All right, so acting, and right now you actually have something. By the time this premieres in January, it'll be past, but you have a couple different film projects you're working on, short films and things. Expound on like what was the gateway from visual art into theater into film? Like how did that all connect?
In simple, it's just the things that I fell in love with and never wanted to stop doing any of them. I remember, this is kind of jumping around, but there was a friend of mine at a bowling alley. I see her kind of frequently. She worked there, and I love bowling, and I'd be in there a couple of times a week or whatever. And she found out I was a painter, so she was looking at my painting things. And then she found out I was an actor. She was checking out some things I'd done, and she found out I was a writer, and she was like, "You got to pick one thing." And I was like, "No, I don't. What are you talking about? Why?" I love them so much, and people always ask me, "Oh, if you had to do only one, what would you choose?" And it's a hypothetical that it's hard for me to entertain because I just can't do that. But to answer your question more directly, the visual art I've been doing since I can literally remember as a child. It just kept evolving more and more over the course, so many years and the course of time. I didn't start painting until I was 17 after I moved to New York, but I loved art for the longest, and I always did art. And then acting I fell into more so in high school, but more seriously, in my college years on the dramatic level, and that was specifically stage. But see, I've always loved film. I've always loved watching movies. I didn't understand that it was something that I wanted to be a part of necessarily. But when I was a kid, I don't know if you remember, you might remember this actually. I used to have a book bag, and I would carry 3 or 4 of the same movies, VHS, in my book bag. And whenever we would go to family events, I'd ask them, can I get to a TV so I can watch this movie? And I would burn those movies out like it was no tomorrow. And that was just something I was so in love with. But once I started doing acting more on stage, I started to understand more of what kind of acting I wanted to do. Right? So I was born on the stage, and theater is always my first love, and I'll always go back to it, I'm sure. I just did a 2-man play a few months ago. I'll always go back to it. But the more I did it, the more I kept watching, films. I'm like, yo, that's the kind of acting I actually want to get into more. And that's when I made the decision to relocate to California. It took me about 8 years to get there from, New York and coming back home to Detroit. But that was the decision I made with that. So, yeah, overall, it's the things that I fell in love with and never wanted to stop doing. I started writing in 2010. That was, really thanks to your sister for this workshop that I was a part of. I never thought of writing before. I never thought of creating my own stories. I did it one time. I wrote a short stage play. It was literally 3 pages long. It was called Closer. It's 2010. And the feeling I had of creating my own story, my own characters, my own plot and synopsis and character developing, I'm like, yo, it just opened up so much more for me. And I haven't stopped writing since. So I've done a lot of, short films and a couple of feature-length screenplays and started to produce my own writings as well and just falling in love with it more and more.
So as people are definitely gleaning into some of the creativity of our family and everything, you mentioned my sister.
Yeah.
You also got an uncle.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Your uncle is when people say, like, how do you do all of this? And he's definitely been on here, Lumumba Reynolds or DJ R2. I remember him originally.
Right. Damn, I forgot about that.
What impact of like just seeing some of the creativity, and then even me, like what impact of seeing some of the creators in your family doing production work kind of impact have on you?
Man, so even more than the impact, because at this point, him and I are collaborating hand in hand with our own projects, and I cannot be more excited about this. But coming up under someone who was so heavily involved in production, more in a musical sense, which is not, something I involve myself in, but still production and theater, I should say, because he's dabbled in all of those different things. Being able to learn so much from him, and then him bring me on with the, certain gigs he was doing, and I learned so much from it, similar to Miss MC. When it comes as far as what I learned from theater, from MC, I learned production from Unc is what I call him, but Lumumba Reynolds. And for us to grow into this type of relationship it's beyond words, man, because it started with him being a mentor, a father figure. Well before I had the thought or capability of doing anything production-wise, no training, none of that stuff. It was just like he was my father figure. And then to come up to where we are now, we have a meeting tomorrow to talk about the next short film we're going to do. This two weekends ago, we had a screening for 2 short films, one of which I wrote and was in, that he did the editing and graphics and scoring along with his son, Jabari Reynolds, who's a whole nother beast in his own world.
Yeah.
And then the other short film I wrote and started, and he directed and edited and scored.
Yeah.
So it's this partnership that we're developing. It's just, I'm beyond happy about it, man.
So another couple questions then connected to this about art in Detroit and art in family. So let's start with art and production, because sometimes people say, money and blood don't mix. How do you connect the artistry in these projects working with family members?
That's a good question, and that goes down to our personalities and who we are as people in our family. We've never had that type of issue. You know what I mean? Actually, it's funny because this was a while ago, and there was a cousin who asked for $20, and I'm like, yeah, I'll cash up to you, bro. And I'll get it to you Friday. I'm like, all right, cool. And someone else who intruded on that exchange was like, your cousin just asked for $20. You gonna give it to him? And I was like, yeah. What are you talking about? Because of how that can be looked at in other families, it's like, oh, he always asking for money, or they never give me back my money. It's like that ain't what this is. That ain't what this is here in this family. That's just an example of just how we are with our characters, because that's at the root of it right there. And that's how I was brought up. It's all about the character. Because Unc and I, we had this screening, and a lot of things cost a lot of money. I'm spending money on mine, he's spending money on his end, not even knowing like what's happening. And I asked him about, because he printed off several copies of film posters for us to sell. And I asked him, I said, what do I owe you? He's like, well, this costs this and this costs this, but this is a partnership. This is we're coming together and doing this together. So I'm trying to get this next. If you want to chip in on that, or if not, that's fine. But we're coming together for this, because it's not about the money. Okay. And I think that's the next part. Honestly, it's not about the money. For me, I'll speak for myself personally. I'm in love with this, and I'll do this to my last breath. And my inspiration is just me doing something that I love and sharing my art with the world. It's not to make money off of it. Obviously, I'm going to have to, because that's what you need to survive. But at the end of the day, that's not the motivation. So I'm not like, oh, I need some money from this screen. I need some money from this. I need to make some money. No, that's not what it is.
And then art in Detroit, because you've you're in LA now. Well, I don't know. We explicitly said you said Cali, but
Yeah.
you're in LA now. You were in New York City, New York,
Right.
and you've also done artistry things here. What is it like for those artists that work in that world of that are looking to get more into acting or film? What would you say if they're going to ground themselves in Detroit? What's the mindset to say? What is the catalyst of going to another place? How do you engage? So let's just start there. Doing art here, doing theater or acting here in the city of Detroit. What is that like? Or what was that like for you, I should say?
It was good. It was good. And I say it's a lot to be learned from doing theater here in Detroit. You know, every place has a different kind of audience. And that Detroit audience, you got to get them. You got to get them quick.
So explain.
Oh,
explain on
so
that.
I'm saying like literally on stage, if you're presenting your production to a Detroit audience, you have to reel them in fast. First off, it's going to be hard for them to come out because the winters last 7 months here in Detroit.
Hilarious.
And for depending on the age group, the generational age groups we have here, the last thing they want to do is go to a play. It's about going to a hangout, going to a club, a bar, the movies. It's not that type of place necessarily. I mean, you got to find your audience kind of thing. So that's what I'm saying. In New York, people go to plays every single weekend. It's easier to sell a play in a place like New York or even Cali or, Los Angeles specifically because that's where it exists more. It's where it's understood more. Here, it's like it's a unique, as I would say, it's a unique challenge to do it here. That 2-man play that we did here, the second showing we had went very good, and we're very responsive. The first showing, only a couple people came out to. So I think it depends on like knowing your audience as far as doing theater here, and then doing theater outside of here, or I mean anywhere else for that matter. I would say if I'm giving advice to younger actors, do as much theater that comes your way.
When you say that, meaning like, what if I only get like one line in that? What if they say be a production assistant?
Do it.
What if they say be the person at the door taking tickets?
Do it. Because even if you're not on the stage, even if you're guiding people to their seats, you can observe everything and be a fly on the wall. You can watch the production from the house if you're doing security or checking coats, whatever it is, and you can still learn something. I've taken on the smallest of roles. I had theater roles where I didn't have a single line. I just walked on stage and walked over here and did a little bit of this. But it's like, even I wasn't even in character. When I was on stage, I'm literally looking at the stage and looking at the house, thinking, okay, cool, I get some of this now. And the lights burning on my skin. I'm like, okay, I that's something I have to get used to, and not being able to see the audience. Like, I get used to it. Okay, so by the time where I was a leading character in the stage production, I'd already been on stage a dozen times. I got a paragraph in this show. Now I got 2 pages worth in it. Oh, now I'm in half of this play. Yeah, okay. Now I'm only sharing the stage with one other person. Oh, all right, cool. I can do it though because I've been doing this for years. I've been absorbing and observing for years from every angle you can think of.
Now, the advice I gave you was I think it's way more opportunities in a place like LA or New York. Then I think I would curate that a little bit different. I probably like say it in a way like, here you got to approach it differently. But let me get your advice. So that young actor, do they need to, if they're thinking I got to be in LA, I got to be in New York. Possibly it's more productions in Atlanta now too, so possibly Atlanta.
Yeah.
Do they need to be there? And if so, how would they even prepare themselves for a transition?
It's the latter of that question that I think is more important because do they need to be there? Depends on what they want to do exactly, but probably in a place where you can really live off of it. You can really do it. It's a special occasion when there's a big play here in Detroit. It's a special thing that's going on. Like I said, those other locations, you can throw in Chicago as well. You can throw in Houston as well. You can throw in, Miami. It's a thing there. It's a thing. It's a regular thing. But as far as preparing for it, that goes back to what I was saying before. Take on every production you possibly can right now. And some people gave me some advice when I was starting to write. It was an older writer who said, read scripts. and you'll understand how to then construct them. He said, just go to Google, print out scripts of your favorite films, and films that aren't good. Read those too to understand how to construct your own. So if I was to transfer that over to what we're talking about right now, do all the theater. When I was here for those 8 years, and I only planned on it being like 3 months. I'm so glad it was 8 years instead, because I was able to learn and grow so much. I did a handful of theater. I was like, yo, this sucks. These people are not bringing it. This scheduling is all over the place. They're changing the script a little bit. It's like, but that kind of stuff prepares you, so that if and when you make that transition, and now you're off Broadway, you can roll with it. You good. You got it.
Mm-hmm. All right, now let's talk a little bit about bringing it and everything. As we sit not that far from the Repertory Theater, which is like a couple blocks away. How do you even judge what bringing it is and the level of talent? I want to do a play. I don't even know if people are going to want to be in this play.
Yeah.
I'm that writer. Like, how do you work with what you got?
I think it starts with what I said initially. First was just you got to be doing something that you love. When I was first starting to do different film jobs, I was doing every kind of film job. And I was talking to a camera operator, and he was like, is this what you really want to get into? I was in the camera department. I was like, well, I love acting, and I want to get into writing. He's like, oh, you got to do that. If you do this, what you're doing right now, you're going to get more jobs doing this, and it's not going to stop. You have to do what you love. He loved it. 16-hour days. Mm-hmm. He loved it. So you got to do what you love. And the next part is being honest to yourself. When I'm writing something, very seldomly am I writing something about like me or my experiences, my life, but I'm still trying to be honest and true within those characters. And I love sci-fi too, but there's still an honest and a truth to how you construct that story, that plot, those characters, the character development, the character building. So with whatever the story is, you be honest with yourself, be truthful to to what the story is, and put it out there.
Okay. All right. So if I have this story, I got the church said they'll open up this, or the gym said, hey, they'll open this. This is my first play.
Yeah.
Do I just got to jump out there? Do you suggest just jumping out there, like, and going at it? Like, how do I even know that I'm ready? Which is a big question for anybody that works in the creative space.
Well, you'll never know unless you do it. I mean, I would honestly say yes. Jump, dive. Steve Harvey gives this amazing metaphor, and I might butcher it up a little bit, but it was in between takes of his talk show. And he talked about you can never fly unless you jump. You got to jump off of that rock. You're going to, scrape the side a little bit. You're going to cut yourself. You may do a free dive for several feet, but if you don't jump, you'll never fly. Mm-hmm. You'll never do it. So I know a lot of people allow fear to prevent them from propelling themselves into those types of artistic fields, and they'll never know because they'll never jump.
And even deeper, as you said, you do this because you love the artistry and it's something that you want to get out and release.
Yeah.
How do you even set up your barometer for success? Because when you make that move to LA, when you make that move to New York, you may feel like I'm making this move, but I don't know, you're making it on faith, and you may get, you may have other questions, people calling you, your mom calls you like, hey, how you doing out there? And it's like, I don't know, I got 7 roommates. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's hilarious. I'm in a rock and a hard place right now. Like, how have you set yourself up where you have your own barometer of success and quality of life?
Yeah. No, that's a perfect question because, and again, I may sound like a broken record, but I'll give like specific examples because it all boils down to you doing what you love. I've had times where I had negative dollars, but I was fine because I know that I'm making this sacrifice because I love my craft. That's how much I love it. So I'm cool with being broke. I've been broke so many damn times, I done lost count.
Yeah.
But it don't matter because I'm doing what I love. And the success part, it depends on what your definition of success is. Because I always talk about how I'm successful if I'm making a living, no matter what scale of that living is, if I'm making a living doing what I love. That's success. I'm successful right now because that's what I'm able to do right now. There are higher levels of it, obviously, which is what I'm climbing. But what's your definition of success?
Now, how do you quantify something like that? Because usually I think that pressure, that anxiety comes from that outside world. It's family,
It does.
it's friends, it's your partner. You know what I'm saying? Your wife, husband, whatever, you know, girlfriend, boyfriend. It's the people that, you know, you used to work with. That's like, man, you the best, but now you choosing to do that. That don't even make no sense. You're too old to get out here and start acting. Like, what you doing? You 60 years old. You know, like, how what would you suggest to that person that does feel that pressure, that has some of that anxiety about taking that jump?
I would say, for starters, ignore them. Ignore them all. I mean, unless you're literally doing something that's unsafe or unhealthy, ignore the outside voices. And something that gave me a nice little boost was looking at those success stories. You know, who do you look up to? Who do you admire in the craft and field that you're operating in? Watch those stories because you gave a perfect example. You're too old to get out there and start acting. Morgan Freeman didn't do his first big role until he was in his mid 50s, late 40s, something like that. I'm like, well, shit, I'm way ahead then. I'm good. You know, Samuel L. Jackson, same story.
Yeah.
It's so many actors. Jeremy Renner, he was my age when he did his first big film and got nominated for an Oscar for it. So with this field specifically, it's never too late.
Wow.
It's never too late.
Okay. Now, within it, what's the difference between a place like having your Detroit swagger? Do you think that your Detroit attitude prepared you for LA and New York in a different style?
Yeah. I definitely think so. I think there were like tiers of preparedness along my journey because growing up on the west side of Detroit, where it's not the safest of areas, and then, you know, going to college in Harlem and living in Harlem before it became fully gentrified, and then going over to Inglewood. You know, it's like I like that. I like that story. I like that history. Inglewood is way different now than it was in the 90s, but it's still gang territory. You know, and it started with the Detroit roots because every time somebody, you in Harlem, or watch out, you near Malcolm X Boulevard. Every city got a dangerous Malcolm X Boulevard. You over here in Inglewood?
Well, yeah. It's like usually the joke is Martin Luther King, but if it's a Malcolm X, it's like, damn. You think Martin Luther King is dangerous? Like Malcolm X is like, whoa. It's like, and then I remember because you stayed with my sister, like it was. Yeah. I think like one time when I was driving my mom, rest in peace to my mom, but it was like maybe like 2 a.m. and it was still people out and the action was still like
the characters on 133rd, like, man, 133rd and Lenox. It never stopped, man. It never stopped. But yeah, it all started with, I think, being able to develop that core and external shell from being raised in Detroit.
Okay. So with that, what's next? What you working on now? What are your projects? What's your next projects? What do you see coming up?
It's a few things. It's more than a few things. So I previously mentioned 2 short films that my uncle and I had a screening for a couple weekends ago, and he actually had this idea, and I wasn't sure if it was going to work or not, to have all these short films, not all, but several of the short films I've done recently exist in the same world, you know, like the Marvel shared cinematic universe kind of thing. And when he said that, I thought, man, that would be awesome. Does it work though? So we were literally talking out the plot points of each short film that'd be a part of this, you know, this pool.
So like connecting them in like a, what is that? And he likes this too, like Twilight Zone type of thing or something.
Well, not like in reality, just straight up. It's just the same character, but at different parts of his life.
Yeah, that's where I say like, okay. So when I say Twilight Zone, because sometimes the Twilight Zone will use one story and connect it to the next story,
exactly,
to the next story.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, gotcha. just like that. So yeah, he had that idea, and I'm like, oh, it's got to make sense though. Does it really add up? And we looked at everything, and it actually does. I'm like, all right, bet. So there are 3 more short films that I'm going to write that we're going to do to be a part of this collection of, I think it'll be 7 or 8 total once it's all said, ranging between 5 and 10 minutes apiece. So that's a big project there. That's continuing to work on there. And then I did a film called Dark Seeker that I shot here up north, Michigan. And
whereabouts?
Where did I shoot it?
Yeah.
Oh man, I cannot remember the name of this town. It's about 2.5 hours up north. Yeah. And it's in the theater playing right now at the Bel Air Luxury Cinema over on 8 Mile, and it was only supposed to be for a week run from the 3rd to the 9th. I just got the word yesterday that they are extending it for another week.
Okay.
So I'm excited about that. I saw it a couple times, and yeah, it's a surreal feeling to see yourself on that big screen. I've been watching films, like I said, since I was a kid, taking VHS tapes to all family members' homes just to watch a movie, and now I can see myself up there, and it's a huge feeling, and it's I feel like it's only the start of the beginning, and I just want to move forward with bigger and better things. And as far as the visual art is concerned, there's a show called Personal Attractions that I've done 3 times now. Once in 2012, 2015, 2017. And so this is the 4th show for that. And that came about, long story, probably long, but about a decade ago. I was collaborating with a couple other artists. And at the time, every single show that I'd done, there was a specific theme for the type of, the demographic that's going to be present, and had some type of thing I had to go, guidelines or whatever for what I painted and showcase. This particular show, I said, okay, so what's the theme? What's this? What we're doing? And they literally said, paint whatever you want. You have space for about 5 or 6 paintings, depending on the size, but just paint whatever you want. Oh, bad. Okay, cool. And that was the first time I was given that type of freedom to do my painting publicly and just do whatever I wanted to do. So from that was the birth of Personal Attractions. And basically, honestly, it's about 10 to 13 different themes, 3 to 4 paintings per theme. And it's just all the things that I enjoy, that I love.
Will it be all new pieces or
all new pieces?
Wow. So
it's always all new pieces. When I do a Personal Attraction show, it's always all new pieces. The one we did in 2015, I did 50 paintings for, and about went crazy. But I love pushing myself. I love exploring new concepts, new ideas, and I'm constantly growing as an artist as well. So all new pieces for this.
Okay. All right. And then also, as you have here, I know you're getting into other things like clothing and working alongside someone else in the family. As you definitely stay strong working with family. Kaylin, who's in the studio now. Kaylin is another one of the younger cousins that's like definitely like a big homie now in like everything business.
Yes.
And she works alongside you heavy. And I remember, I don't know if you remember, even when I said, you probably need to extend working with Kaylin a lot, because she'll probably
it's always Kari dropping
more of the business stuff in order for you, because as an artist, you like staying in art world. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, Kaylin, man, road dog since day one. Seriously, when I did Personal Attractions 1, which was also the first personal showing I had of my art. Up until that point, I was collaborating with everyone. Even you and I did a couple of things. I was always collaborating with other artists, Yeah. But PA1 was the first time I did something that was all me.
Solo.
And Kaylin, she literally just was helping out on the day, but I turn over and she's got a clipboard and taking down orders for something. I'm just like, oh, Kaylin's really working the room.
Yeah.
So after that day, I'm like, yo, you wanna really help me out and do this? So that's almost
structure this chaos.
Yeah, exactly. So it's been almost 10 years now. So every single event I've done, and that goes into the film work as well, honestly. Kaylin has been a part of every single project, showcase, exhibition, everything. She's done contracts for me now. She's done it all, because that was a goal of mine, I wanted to just be able to focus on the art. Obviously, I can't do that, with being my own business and entrepreneur, but as much as I'm able to have someone else pick up on, especially the business side of things and money, because she that's her world, she does that, I can focus more on the art.
Yeah.
So she's been a humongous help, and that's a heavy understatement right there. But yeah.
Yep. So so clothes and all of this stuff, I've always been pushing like the whole concept of like you need throw pillows, you need this, you need that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
You mentioned that some years back, and I know at the time I know I was a little more in my head as an artist. I'm like, I just want to paint. I don't want to.
I remember. I
don't want to put my stuff on that. But as I got not even just older, but started to become an artist for a living, I'm like, that wouldn't be a bad idea if I did.
Well, it's just one of those things like when a person already is spending like fine art, you know what I'm saying? You're making good pieces. This isn't the art that a person goes to like Pier 1 or Joanne Fabrics and just buys and throws up on the wall. This is like, if a person's already going to spend $2,000 on a piece, $1,500, $3,000, $5,000 on a piece, usually that person is going to rearrange whatever that room is. They're going to paint the wall. They're going to want to frame it. They're going to want like, the right art piece usually can change the whole decor of a person's room. Yeah. So if you're the artist and you're the catalyst for why this whole room changes, why is Home Depot going to get 70% of the money associated with the change of this room? Right. And you can already help even usher in and know that, I'm going to want to repaint this wall. What colors are these? What do you suggest? Do you even have a person that comes in and paints the wall and I may want to get a new couch. I may want to get a throw rug, a throw pillow. All of this stuff, you know what I'm saying, will go into these rooms. As remember I was telling you a while ago and it kind of blew your mind. I was like, ask the people that buy your art, like, send me a picture of where you put the painting.
And that is definitely something I do now. Especially after they get it framed, because that at that point becomes kind of their world. You get the painting raw on canvas, and then you get your mat size, you get the frame and the design, and now it's above this couch and next to this centerpiece or whatever, and it's like, it really came together.
And you see like it enters their world, and it's more like for you it was the expression getting out. For them this is accenting like who they are, like an extension of their personality or something.
And that's honestly those are the beginning questions I have a lot, and I know that came from the conversations I've had with you, because a lot of people don't really know what they want or what kind of colors or whatever, and I'm like, okay, where do you want to put it in your space? We measure that whole wall, and then that'll give us an understanding of how big you want the painting itself to be. You don't know what background color is. Okay, what's in the room right now? Let's get a picture. Let's see. So those types of collaborations, I know it came from the talks I've had with you, because before that, I know I just paint whatever they ask for, and if they left it up to me, I just do whatever I want.
Your interpretation.
Right. As opposed to trying to still make it be something that's from me, but also can exist
in their world.
Exactly.
So as we talk more about in their world, and like you say, you bounce between the writing, the acting, the visual art. Like, do you just move over to like this space and say, all right, because I do a lot of stuff too. Like, do you move over to this space and say, all right, this is kind of tiresome, let me bounce over to that space? Like, how do you organize your time to know what project to work on?
It's a couple of different things. So like the commissions are always ongoing, because that's what is really paying the bills. And then whenever I can find the time to do the pieces for like the personal attractions exhibition or any type of the masks we wear, that's another exhibition that's coming up next summer. So whenever I squeeze in time to work on those up until a certain point, then everything else shuts down. I'm only working on that. And then the writing comes in whenever I'm inspired to. And the film work of other film projects, that comes in whenever I get a call. I'm not heavy out there auditioning just yet. That's going to change a lot of things once I'm able to get my agent out in California and go about a whole different method. But yeah, it's not really like I feel like doing this now or I feel like doing this now. It all depends on what's going on in my world.
Okay. All right. And let's talk a little bit about that auditioning world. What is that like, going on those auditions out there?
I don't really know, honestly. I haven't really gotten into it yet. The little bit of acting I've done out there, it was referral based. And I know the way I want to go about it is to complete my reel. I literally have one clip to add, and my reel will be completed. And then I'm going after the agent, and I want to follow it along like that structure, where the agent is sending me out on auditions.
Okay.
Because I could do it the other way and just try to go on them, but I've been doing that for so many years, and that's not really how it's done out there, from what I understand. So, I want to go about it how they do it.
The structure of it.
Yeah.
And what's LA like? Because many people talk like it's definitely an infrastructure for it. But what is LA? How does it feel different even than New York with that world of theater and acting?
It's more of a place where people look for that, It's not something, from my experience, younger and, the 8 years I was here in between New York and California, it's not something people, hey, what play you want to check out this weekend? Like, that's not a thing people do here. There's a theater inside the park I played basketball at in Inglewood. It's everywhere. It's more film than theater in California, and theater is, of course, more in New York, but yeah, I mean, it's a bigger response. It's a different response. People are more patient. I did one play called To Be Dali. It was about Salvador Dali's life, kind of like the afterlife. And I played an angel. It was a 3-person cast. And the response was just, man, it was incredible. We had people come to see that show 3-4 times. And, yeah, it wasn't even like in the heart of L.A. or downtown L.A. It was in the outskirts. It was a little known theater, Casa 101. Shout out to them. And yeah, it's looked at more of a profession and career path, and less of a hobby.
And what would you compare that contrast even in New York as far as the hustle there with that
It's
work?
fast paced, way faster paced in New York. I remember, man, I got so used to it and was going to school full time, was working full time, was painting, was in a theater program, and balancing, juggling all that stuff. I don't know if I could do it the same way nowadays. I mean, I was like 17 to 20 or whatever, but it was incredibly fast paced. And I moved back to back to Detroit. People had to tell me to slow down. Physically, because I was walking too fast, but also just in general because I was doing too much to them. It's like, well, this is how it is over there. That's what I'm used to, and it's like, okay, well, I gotta adapt to how things flow here a little bit. Yeah,
And you think New York even's a little bit of faster pace than LA even?
yeah,
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then do you think that what about the people there? Because a lot of people in both places aren't necessarily grounded and from there.
Right, true.
What have you found with like meeting people from LA that come to there? Like, what's been their calling card? What was the catalyst for them being in LA versus staying where they were at?
That's a good question, actually. Yeah, because both places typically is somewhat of a melting pot, especially New York. New York is all about that grind and hustle. Folks out in Cali, a lot of people say that they're fake and false and bougie and things like that. I think that's a little extensive just from, my observations, being out there just a few years, granted. But people have a different, energy and spirituality to them out in LA and Cali in general. It's like they operate on a different plane a little bit.
Expound on that.
It's in the interactions I've had, it's people are more at one with themselves. They know themselves more and differently. It's more peaceful, more, not saying it's the opposing side, in other places, but it's a more like a spirituality grounded, and my chakras are in line, my energy is this, the vibes are this, as opposed to just a raw, uncut in New York, Yeah.
So within that, do you see yourself doing productions yourself just out there? And then how is it different? Because it seems like even with Dara, like it from the outside in, it seems as though both of you all were able to go to New York and kind of hit the ground running and do what y'all wanted to do. Whereas with LA, it seems like y'all kind of got to learn more of the system.
Yeah, things are done a little differently out there, and because in New York, we were both doing theater a lot, which you could just do in New York. If you got, if you have that drive, you have that talent, a couple of connects here and there, you're good. You can find a niche. You can find a way to get in that world, In in Cali, I know we're both operating and attempting to work more in television and film. And I don't think it's that easy just to get in there. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So within that, also, like, what's your take on so much of what's happening in that world? The streaming services, the platforms, like things are expanding. It's more, as they say, my world, content creation, period. It's like even bubbling to like the hood movies here in Detroit and Buffalo and Atlanta and DC, San Francisco. Like, what's your take on like this urge for more content to exist on all levels, and like almost like it seems like every niche is having a streaming service nowadays.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think it's great. Honestly, I think it's great because there's an audience for everything. You know, so before I know that the pandemic has a lot to do with this surge in the streaming platforms, which I'll touch on that in a second. But let's say 3, 4, 5 years ago, there wasn't something for everybody on Netflix or on. I can't even think what other streaming platform existed 4 or 5 years ago, but it wasn't something for everybody, you know, or on cable network or anything like that. But now, one quick search, and they even have it broken into different categories for every type of person. Yeah. You know, there's an LGBTQ category on some of these streaming platforms, specifically for that audience. That didn't exist a couple years ago. You know what I'm saying? And the streaming platforms in general, I think it's just that next wave. It's that next stage. You know, you can watch literally on the same day that a movie is released in theaters, you can watch on your couch on the same exact day. HBO Max has this deal with a lot of different movies. King Richard was one of them. Yeah. The upcoming Matrix 4 is another one.
I see.
You can watch it on your couch on the same day someone's watching it in IMAX in the theaters. So I think that's great because I don't know the business side of that, how that affects certain studios and the box office in general. But as a consumer, because I'll always be that as a consumer, I think it works perfectly. There are certain movies where I gotta go to the theater to see this movie. I have to be there. I bought my ticket for Spider-Man 3 a week ago. It still doesn't come out for another 2 weeks.
Wow.
I gotta be in the theater to see that. But I saw King Richard in my bed, 7 a.m. when I rolled over and woke up. Okay. Because that one, I can watch this at home. You know, it's not the spectacle of sci-fi action thriller type of thing. So to be able to please everybody in all the different ways, I think is great. Again, I don't know what that means financially for some of these studios, you know, some of these producers, but I think it's great as a consumer.
Okay. All right. And as we kind of like get closer to a wrap, what are some of your favorite films? Do you still find yourself a fan of film? Because sometimes people get into a world and they, you know, check out from, you know, being like the as they say, the average Joe consumer.
Nah, man, I'm more of a fan, if that's even possible. It's funny because the films that I used to watch, like I said before, it's like 3 or 4 films I used to watch on repeat every day as a child. I looked at them again when I started to act, when I started to write, when I started to be involved in film, and I looked at it through a different lens. You know, like The Mask was one of them. Jim Carrey, The Mask. I watched that ad nauseum when I was a kid. Didn't know who Jim Carrey was. Didn't know what acting was. That, well, you know, whatever, 2 hour and a half piece of material just captured me so heavily as a child. And then I watched it again after I started acting. And I'm like, yo, he's an amazing actor in this. He's doing great acting. Multiplicity is another one where Michael Keaton plays multiple characters. And as a I didn't watch that as a kid necessarily, but younger, I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. This is dope. As an actor, I'm like, he's playing 4 characters at once. How did they pull that off? So
let's talk about that, because like, you know, you got like Multiplicity, you got The Clumps, then you got like whatever that Marlon movie is, like. And then I sometimes look at that and I think to myself, as you know, my nephew Solomon, he loves those Marlon movies, which I feel like physical comedy, as you're talking about The Mask and even like Michael Keaton Multiplicity, it transfers well internationally and to young people very well. But then, like, you know, somebody like me looks at it like, man, is this corny? But like, what is the acting chops involved in something like those types of films? As much as you know that somebody like me may say, man, you know what I'm saying?
It's so much. It's so much. And I didn't understand it as much until I started doing that myself. There's a few short films where I play 2 characters. There's one where I play 3 characters. I'm actually working on one where I'll be 5 characters.
Oh, you getting the Eddie Murphy zone.
Yeah, I am. I swear I am. I love it so much. But the level of difficulty is ridiculous. The one where I played 3 characters and we're literally all talking to each other at the same time. So the end product, it looks like, something from the Nutty Professor films or whatever. But to do it, I have to study the script 3 different times, 3 different ways to do all 3 characters. And then when I'm one character, I have to remember what I did and how I sounded and so I can respond properly as the other character and bounce off of myself. But I didn't do that role yet. I didn't do that side yet. So I got to switch clothes and do that side. It's complex and it's very difficult.
Okay, and then does the timing just work in, like, now I'm going to be a little technical for the people watching. Like, does it just jump cut? So it's like, I'm sitting here like, hello, Spider-Man, I'm Batman. How you feeling? You did that? You threw some webs at somebody, and then you come back in as Batman, and then you like, or you come back in as Spider-Man, and it's like, yeah, you got your utility belt on. Like, how does it like it jump cut? Like, what is it? Or are you actually like consistent in the dialogue, almost knowing what's said in this point in time in your memory?
It depends. It depends on just the overall production of it. So there was only one short film I did where I had to. It was only 2 of me sitting next to myself on the couch, and it was a skeleton crew, bare bones crew, literally just myself and the camera operator. Mm-hmm. So I didn't have anyone present to read my lines as the other actor. Mm-hmm. I just had to say them in my head and respond facially. Mm-hmm. And then pick up where I left off in my head, and then be the other person and do the same thing back and forth. I don't even know if I'm explaining that well.
No. What you just said is basically that seems it. That would be different.
But that's the non-ideal way because the timing could be off.
Yeah.
Because if I don't say it as the other actor, the way I said it in my head a second ago, it can be off. So the way to do it better, more streamlined and effectively, is to have someone like a script supervisor, which Caitlin has been many times. Script supervisor to read the lines off camera for the other actors. So I'll have either I'll have an eye line established to from when I'm with the other person.
So eye line, for people to know, like basically you have to look at someone if you're talking to someone, but this is where like in animation or something, they're talking to a tennis ball.
Exactly. They use tennis balls a lot for eye lines. Mm-hmm. I would literally just pick a spot on the wall and use that instead. I don't like using another person because it's kind of distracting.
Yeah.
But I would just pick a spot. I would have someone stand in and it's like, okay, I would be right there and I would just look at that spot, whether it's a lamp or a spot on the wall, whatever it is. And then so while someone's saying the lines off camera, I'm still looking at where I'm going to be. And then I switch to that person, and then the script supervisor will say the lines of, the other person, and then just complete it all like that. And the editing, it works seamlessly.
Wow, that's layered.
Yeah, it's pretty complex. I mean, props to they call it movie magic when they pull that off. Man, I look at the dinner table scene for Nutty Professor, and it's like, yo, he's 5 people right now.
Yeah.
He's damn near everybody at the table. Mm-hmm. Or there's another less popular one just because of whatever reason, but it's an amazing film. Whatever Happened to Monday. She plays 7 people. Literally 7 people. There are multiple scenes where it's only the 7 people, and it's not like a dream sequences or anything like that. She's actually I don't know what 7 sisters are, what septuplets or something, whatever it is, but it's 7 of them. So. And I watched some of the behind the scenes of that, and it's just astounding. It's astounding because she's also different character traits. It was one. They're named after the days of the week, so Monday through Sunday, and they're all very different. One's very professional. One's like a party girl. One is a fighter and don't give a shit about nobody else. And it's just like, wow, the way they pull that off it's amazing.
That's yeah. I may go back and you just gave more context to it. I definitely know. You know me. I like more of the dialogue and stuff. So
so you know it? You saw it?
Oh. Nah. So I like films with dialogue. I'm more built on like how dialogue. And, and the quirkiness and the absurdity sometimes of what dialogue can be. But yeah, this is all deep. So if a person wants to get in contact with you, get to some of your art, how do they reach out?
So on Instagram, it's Devin the Painter, Devin the Painter. Facebook is Devin Laster. I know I'm like, old head using Facebook still. Apparently, that's not a thing to use anymore.
Hilarious.
I don't have Snapchat or TikTok or what's the other ones I don't have?
That it would be TikTok.
Okay,
yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I'm very active on those two social media platforms. I love pushing my art out. That's honestly how I get my business.
Okay. All right. And then also you got a calendar. I'm going to get that calendar. So this will be at the top of the year. So if you need a calendar, I will have that link in there. Get the calendar. I'm getting the calendar. It's shipped to order. So you'll be good wherever you at.
Yeah. It's a 2022 feline painting theme calendar.
Yep.
I've been painting felines for years now, and it's my favorite animal. So I thought I'd do this project to be able to look at throughout the course of the year.
All right. For sure. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Peace.
Detroit is Different is where you get information, artistry, history, music, and even comedy. Detroit is Different, a home for the culture of Detroit. Visit online at DetroitisDifferent.com today.